Welcome to the Candidates Forum on Orion Neighborhood Television. Tonight we'll meet your candidates for Township Clerk, Trustee, and Treasurer. Tonight's program is brought to you by Orion Neighborhood Television, the Orion Area Chamber of Commerce, and the League of Women Voters. Now let's head out to the studio for the 2016 Candidates Forum.
The candidates for treasurer are Republicans Donnie Steele and Mark C. Thurber. Opening statements will now begin, and we will start in alphabetical order with Ms. Steele.
Hi, my name is Donnie Steele, and thank you for coming tonight and learning more about your local candidates. I am seeking election as your full-time treasurer. My initial desire to run as a trustee was to give back to the community where I grew up and where I raised my children. I've been married to my husband Philip for 25 years, and I'm raising my two boys, Max and Colton, which both go to Lake Orion schools. The reason why I'm seeking the treasury position is because I believe there is a definite lack of leadership and a need for innovation. It is my mission to bring innovation and cohesiveness between the departments within the township. For the past year, I have taken initiative to learn how other municipalities have run their treasury department, how Oakland County interacts with Orion Township, and how we can optimize banking products and enhance our investment portfolio.
Thank you. Mr. Thurber.
Good evening. I'm Mark Thurber. I'm your treasurer at Orion Township currently. First and foremost, I'm a family man, married for 15 years with two sons and a daughter, 11, 10, and 7 years old, all going to Orion schools. When looking for a place to raise my family, my wife and I recognized Orion Township had all the best that we were looking for. We were overwhelmed by the embrace she, my newborn, and I received after moving in, not only from the neighbors, but also from the community at large. It's precisely this warm, generous, small-town character that has inspired me to become fully involved and offer my skills and devotion to the community. Qualifications that make me the best choice for treasurer include I'm a certified public treasurer through Central Michigan University. I have a Bachelor of Science degree from Oakland University with postgraduate work done at George Washington University. I have 30 years experience in finance, research and development, and in international business, holder of multiple patents and publications, and I selected a deputy that is highly qualified as a CPA with vast banking and finance experience.
Thank you. Now is the time for the questions, and we will start our first question with Ms. Steele. Will fulfilling the employment obligation interfere with your duties as treasurer? Will you be a full-time treasurer?
That is a great question. It is my mission to be a full-time treasurer and to give the taxpayers what I believe, what they deserve from your candidate and the position as treasurer. Right now, I am a stay-at-home mom and a full-time trustee for Orion Township. I spend at least 20 hours a week as your trustee, and I will continue that forging forward for your township as your treasurer. I believe that as a treasurer, you'll have 20 hours or so to do the treasurer department work, 20 hours or so to do the benefit of the township, and probably another 20 hours to run as your trustee.
Thank you. Mr. Thurber.
Right now I am your full-time treasurer, and it's very obvious if you drive by Township Hall. You can see my car parked clearly out front when I'm in the office right next to the flagpole, and I have been that way for since I took office. It does not serve the community for me to sit behind the desk all the time. I have other duties and responsibilities. I serve on the NODA board. I serve as a Pollyann Trail treasurer for Pollyann Trail. I work in the volunteer in the schools. I reach out to the community. It's my job to look upon foreclosed property and inspect foreclosed property around the township. There's a number of reasons for me to not necessarily be behind the desk. I have to go to Oakland County frequently. I visit with banks. I go to the bank constantly. I visit with investment advisors. So me being behind the desk in my office isn't necessarily always the optimum place for me to be to serve the community.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Mr. Thurber. Is our budget sufficient to meet the current needs and emergencies like a wind or snowstorm?
Oh, absolutely. I'm a big proponent of saving for a rainy day. Not somebody who, I've often said I'm not the Department of Spending, I'm the Department of Saving. And we have right now in our general fund, we actually have approximately $19.5 million. And our water and sewer fund, we have approximately $41 million. We have plenty for a snowstorm, even a minor catastrophe. However, I also look upon our host fee, something that we get from our from the landfill waste management, as our contingency fund in case of an absolute catastrophe. We can always tap into that.
Thank you. Ms. Steele.
I'm fiscally conservative. I have always been fiscally conservative. I believe that you spend not necessarily the entire budget, but less if it's possible. And there has not been a bill that has come through the board bills that I have not scrutinized. It has been my mission to have a balanced budget the last 3 years, and it was only the 1 year that I did not vote it for that we weren't within the balanced budget. I have been a proponent of watching the fire safety millage to make sure that we stay within the budget. I don't think it's necessary to spend all your money. I think you should spend your money wisely, and I think that the township does a great job at that.
Thank you. The next question, we will start with Ms. Steele. If you had to prioritize how the city money was spent, what would be your highest priority and what would be your lowest priority?
I think that my township money should be spent with safety. I think the safety of the citizens is key. I think that we have our fire and we have our police, and that we need to make sure that the community is safe. I am a big proponent of parks and recreation. I'm a big proponent of trails and safety paths, and I would like to continue along those lines of recreation and safety within our community.
Thank you. Mr. Thurber.
Well, I absolutely agree with the safety and security of our community. That is absolutely got to be key. No one wants to live in a community that's unsafe, and that's what holds us together. That's our strength, is that we're a close-knit community with great culture, and we don't want to lose that based on not providing enough for our safety for our police and fire. Something that I think that we need to focus on, and I'm a big proponent of right now, is the sinking fund. Mentioned in the last part of the forum is that our schools, by legislation in the 90s, really made them property of the township, so to speak. We're stewards to maintain those buildings and infrastructure. And we need to focus and support them at this time with the sinking fund, because the sinking fund is designated to support the buildings and infrastructure. If we don't keep them up, they're going to fall apart. And if our schools fall apart, then what are our young people going to do? They're going to go elsewhere.
Thank you. The next question, we will start with Mr. Thurber. Why was a part-time clerk hired in the Treasurer's Department? Wasn't there enough work to retain the full-time employee?
Can you repeat the question? I didn't quite
Why
understand.
was a part-time clerk hired in the Treasurer's Department? Was there not enough work to retain the full-time employee?
I think what you're referring to is that there were three full-time people with the last treasurer before I took office. At one point, one of those people was dismissed or moved. I don't know how you want to phrase it. And I think it had to do with some, maybe some issues between the treasurer and that person. That left a void. And I just recently took on a part-time person because our duties in the Treasury have grown just as our population has grown, as our revenues have grown, as in fact the legislation where we have to do a lot more settlements with the Oakland County, our duties have all grown, and we've all been discussing how many new residences and whatnot are going in. So we are taking in more money from more people. So we needed to have support for that. And when you only have 2 people and somebody is sick or goes on vacation, that's clerk speaking, we simply don't have enough people to cover for absences.
You can finish the sentence.
Oh, am I? Okay.
Ms. Steele.
Well, part of my balanced budget is that I don't think that we necessarily need more employees to run a more effective and efficient department. I think we need innovation and new ideas and better technology instead of hiring more bodies. As your treasurer, I would have no problem going to the front desk myself. I would have no problem waiting on customers, which are the taxpayers and my citizens, and meeting them at the front gate and selling dog tags and allowing the 2 clerks in the back to go take a lunch and take a vacation. I'm happy to work the front desk and say hi to my residents, because to me, that's the funnest part of the job, is to talk to the people that I see every single day. I didn't think that there was a need to hire a part-time assistant. I believe that what we needed was harder work from our current treasurer, and that's what I'll do, and that's what I would bring to that department.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Ms. Steele. Are you familiar with any pending decisions by the city attorney to formalize whether we should use township funds in an investment pool with Oakland County? Is this a good or bad decision?
Well, I think what you're referring to is most recently $25 million of our township funds are being invested in the Oakland County Pool Investment Pool. And over the past 3 years, it was our duty to the citizens to make sure that that money was being reported as in an investment for the township. And in the past 3 years, the current treasurer chose to not report this as an investment and chose to put it in what he would consider a bank account. And it was recent, actually in the June meeting, that it was asked by the attorney to make a ruling and a decision or an opinion, is this money considered an investment? And the decision is yes, it is.
Thank you, Mr. Thurber.
Well, yeah, that controversy came up, and I'm disappointed that one of our trustees had to invoke our spend your money with our attorney to come up with an opinion on whether we called the money in the investment pool a bank account or whether he called it an investment. I said at the board meeting, I didn't care what we called it. But yet we spent probably several $1,000s getting an attorney opinion on whether it was called an investment or not. The Oakland County Investment Pool works just like a money market account, if any of you have one of those. You put money in it, you get a higher yield. In fact, over the past quarter, we got over 1% return on this money market account, where I can get them, I have access to the money, it's liquid. I can get it in one day, just like a bank account, unlike a long-term investment where there's years investing. So I was able to get over 1% investing in the Oakland County pool. Is anybody able to get that on their accounts out there in the audience? Anyone?
Next question, we will start with Mr. Thurber. How can a citizen review the budget? Is it current?
Our budget is, well, they can come to my office or put in a FOIA and they'll be able to get full budgetary information. And that's transparency in government. I urge you to put in a FOIA request and get a copy of the budget. Our controller, finance person does an excellent job of monthly posting our expenses in an expenditure budget report. And I think that that's probably the best way to do it. My department isn't responsible for keeping the budget records. So coming to the Treasury for a dissemination of that information is incorrect, but I'm happy to talk to anybody about it or any of our finances at any time. Gladly able, I encourage people to come in. It gets a little lonely in there sometimes. Nobody wants to come see the treasurer. It's like they're going to the dentist, I guess.
Thank you. Ms. Steele.
I think regarding the budget, our budget is, we have been keeping our budget up to date. Right now we're collaborating dates in which we can do budget meetings and budget workshops. The budget is really under the control of the supervisor. However, our quarterly reports, which are our financial statements of our funds, which are being invested by the Treasurer's Department, are really not available online, which they could be and they should be. And the quarterly reports have not been on time, and they have not been online, and they are very difficult to read. And that's the job of the treasurer, is to make sure that that information is readily available for the citizens, and that's what I would do.
Thank you. The next question, we will start with Ms. Steele. In a nutshell, what did the audit by Plant Moran Accounting show? Was there any concerns for the residents to be aware of?
Well, we just most recently had our audit report, and we did do very well with our audit report. Plant Moran did a great job. And the one concern that they did write a footnote about was that there was a missing check that was missing from the Treasurer's Department. And Plant Moran had a grave concern that the systems were not put in place properly to be able to alleviate such possible fraudulent opportunities that could happen with a check that's missing from the Treasurer's Department. I think we shouldn't have checks. Let's do e-checks. Let's do e-pay. Let's do electronic checks. Let's do things that are innovative where we don't have systems like this where we have checks missing from the department.
Thank you, Mr. Thurber.
Well, I'm pleased to report that we've had the highest possible ratings from our auditor for the past couple of years since I've been in office, and that's great credit to my wonderful Treasury staff and the clerk's office, since we handle most of the financing. As far as the one footnote that that is being addressed or was brought up, is the check was not missing, and what occurred was the staff who was formerly the accounts payable person came in and got the check on behalf of the clerk's office. So it really had nothing to do with the Treasury staff whatsoever. Now, as far as going to e-checks, that is not physically possible in government. We can't do that. It's impossible to eliminate checks. That's just the way government operates. Having been in private sector for so long, I would like to see a lot of these things take place, but it's kind of impossible as far as government goes.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Mr. Thurber. What is your understanding of how the treasurer's salary is determined? Are bonuses a legitimate incentive for a township employee?
Well, the treasurer's salary, along with all the other government officials, is established by the board. And it really, since I've been in office, any increases have simply been equal to the union contract increase, and there hasn't been any bonuses or anything else for Treasury or for the clerk, to my understanding. It's all governed by the board. I would like to point out that I again came from the private sector. I made a great sacrifice financially to take this position because I wanted to give back to my community, and where bonuses in good times are standard, it's not part of the government routine.
Thank you. Ms. Steele.
Thank you. I think it's a great question, and it opens up the Pandora's box. When our current treasurer took office, he chose to miss probably the first 3 months of office after he was sworn in. And after he missed the first 3 months, then he took a trip to Europe for General Motors because he was working simultaneously at General Motors, and then took another trip to Disney World. And then the first opportunity that there was to vote in a raise for the elected officials, he voted it in. I denied it. I voted it down, in which it did not pass. It was then subsequently voted in the second year, the third year, and the fourth year. And subsequently, I voted it down, down, and down. But what you're referring to is the bonus. There was a $600 bonus that was given to union employees for a rebate for insurance monies. I believe it was insurance monies. And the rebate was given to the union employees, so therefore the elected officials thought, the full-time officials thought that they should also get a $600 bonus. And again, I thought, with this lack of performance, why would we give raises? Why would we give bonuses? So again, I voted that down, and the only person that voted for that $600 to deface your reputation for $600 was Mr. Thurber. Sorry.
Jared, can you respond?
Yes, you have 30 seconds to respond because we do not attack each
I
other.
understand. Thank you.
So, well, what my opponent just pointed out was wrought with inaccuracies. In the beginning transition of my office, and I'm glad you brought it up, is there was no provision by the former administration to provide for insurance for new people coming in. I discovered this shortly before taking office. I have 3 little children and one special needs daughter. I was not going to go without insurance for one moment. And so I did stay on General Motors roll, used up my vacations and vacation time and whatnot and leave time. And you'll notice right now our township employee insurance extends from February 1st to February 1st. The reason for that is because we couldn't get insurance at the beginning of our terms. So that's the reason for all any questions on attendance whatsoever. Furthermore, the rest of it, I don't know what you're even talking about.
And Mr. Thurber, you have 1 minute to answer the original question.
Which was, would you repeat that, please?
What is your understanding of the treasurer's salary? Is it determined? Are bonuses a legitimate incentive?
Oh, I think I already answered that. So, would you like me to repeat it?
Well, no, we waived your time when we don't attack anyone in these forums.
Right.
So when she mentioned you, you got to respond to that. But
Okay.
if you want 30 seconds more to answer the original question, you certainly can.
I think you did.
Okay.
Well, I'll go.
Go ahead if you want to take your time.
I'll go over it again. As I explained earlier, is the I came from the private sector where in good times you get bonuses and whatnot, and I was making a lot more money, and I made the sacrifice to do this for the community for a lesser pay, where there really is no bonuses. The board votes on salaries. The clerk and the treasurer's salary is equal. Supervisor's salary is a little bit higher. Any increases are only proposals that go right along with the union contract for the same amount of money. And yes, I voted for increasing, it's basically a cost of living increase, for increasing my salary and that of all the other elected officials. They're not individual. We're not voting on the treasurer or the clerk or the supervisor separately. They're all bundled together. And that goes along with the trustees too, I believe. So I think that answers the question.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Mr. Thurber. How do you feel about timely fiscal reporting? What will you do to ensure that we're getting our financial status within 60 days of the quarter's end?
I think it's not the financial status, it's financial reporting. And as I said at a recent board meeting, is that my office is governed primarily by two sets of documents. It's the State of Michigan statutes and by our investment policy. State of Michigan statutes require that reporting for a given quarter be reported during the next trailing quarter. And I've always hit that mark. It's 90 days, not 60 days. and our investment policy does not specify anything other than 60 days. I believe there may have been some typo or something in the budget report that said something about 60 days, but my office is not governed by that. And as far as timely reporting, I report out on time and try to shape my reports to please the board. But I want to point out that at no time do the trustees come to my office or call me or send me an email asking ahead of time for any information whatsoever. This is all seems to be theater for the board meetings.
Thank you, Ms. Steele.
Well, I think what our current treasurer is referring to is that I had to make a formal request on one of our recent meetings that we shall have presented to the board the quarterly report from the previous year. So here we are in the 1st of June, and we're looking for the first quarter report of 2016. So if you are lucky enough to have $25 million sitting in an account, wouldn't you be just blazing excited to come over and tell everybody how well that money's doing every single quarter at the beginning of the quarter? I mean, if it's all on a pie chart, if it's all within a fiscal and it's all on a spreadsheet, how hard would it be to run that off at the beginning of each quarter after you reconcile the statements? How much fun it would be to give our quarterly reports on time.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Ms. Steele. What percent of our budget comes from the state coffers? With the state coming in short this year, will that seriously affect us?
Well, approximately $2 million is it comes from the state coffers. It's I want to say profit sharing because I'm coming from the private sector, but it's not. It's per capita sharing. It's based on how many residents that the township has, and it has been threatened for the last 2 years to be taken away from the local townships and the local governments. And luckily, being that it's a big portion of our total budget, luckily we have been able to maintain our state sharing. And I think that that's why it's so important to be involved with your Michigan Township Association to make sure that our local governments are protected, and the Michigan Township Association helps protect our local interests. And I am a local member. I'm the treasurer of the local MTA board. So I would like to keep that.
Thank you, Mr. Thurber.
Well, of course, any changes that the state makes affects us, whether it's on this allocation, on schools, on, in fact, personal property tax on businesses was a big one a couple years ago, and it affects us all the time. There's constant movement. The allocations for the cities, villages, and townships is in constant flux, especially these days. All I can say is yes, it will, if they cut back, it's going to affect us. We're going to have to look at other means of bringing in revenue or cutting back. It's a constant battle. It's probably the biggest topic in government in general, whether we're talking state, local, or federal. We just have to be vigilant, we have to be dynamic, and we have to have personnel to be able to manage all these changes.
Thank you, and this will be the last question prior to the closing remarks. We will start with Mr. Thurber, and it is, what major issue or plan would you put in effect to support the township in the future term?
Well, what I'd like to see is, first of all, development, I think, has gotten a little bit out of hand in our township. And I have always emphasized from day one, quality over quantity. That's what we're about. And something that we haven't seen is development of our industrial zones. We've seen almost no activity, and I'm not talking about commercial zones where we're putting up restaurants or anything else. I'm talking about our industrial zones. Industrial zones, when you set up a technology or a technology company comes in, they invest a tremendous amount of money in capital equipment that just doesn't, move in 6 months. They're here for the long haul. They bring in people, they bring in technologists, educated people, people who have to support our businesses by going out to lunch, by going to dry cleaners. It's that kind of staying power that our development is absent right now. Is we need to focus on our industrial sectors.
Thank you, Ms. Steele.
I have so many. I'll try to finish within my 30 seconds here, but I think initially our officials are not working cohesively together. I believe that there's unnecessary bureaucracy with such things as cash handling policy. I don't think we don't have effective online bill paying. We need more efficiency within our financing report. We need more diverse investments other than the Oakland County pool. We need better banking products. We need electronic checks. We need a lockbox facility. We need bills to be able to e-pay. We need software that all departments are interfaced within the township, within the water, the treasury, the clerk, the rec, and sometimes our money is being handled 4 and 5 times the same dollar. We need more teamwork. We need more collaboration with other municipalities and within our own township. We need to do a lot of things differently so we can take all this bureaucracy and put it aside so that we can give service to our citizens more.
You can finish this statement.
More better. Work right.
Thank you. That concludes the questions. The candidates will now have 1 minute closing. In reverse order, we will start with Mr. Thurber.
I believe the primary purpose of elected officials is to serve the will of the residents. Elected officials have a duty to serve as an example of good citizenship, not being an exception to the rules. I strive to be a role model in all things and be an example to our younger generations, especially my children. I'm dedicated to preserving our culture, character, values, and green spaces, and feel that this must stand as priority over development. I'm Mark Thurber, and I'm asking for your vote on August 2nd for the following reasons. Support me because I stand for traditional principles. The will of the Orion residents will not crumble under the pressure of childish politics. Support me because I choose Orion to raise my young children, own my home, establish my roots, and I will be here for the long haul. And I will accept nothing but the best for my community. Support me because I am objective. I'm not a developer. I'm not a builder. I'm not a real estate agent. I'm not a broker or an owner of a local business. Plain and simple, Orion is my home. Support me because I represent what you want government to be: respectable, dignified, and transparent.
Thank you. Ms. Steele.
Thank you for all staying here till the end. In closing, I have been a loyal, diligent board member for 4 years. I've treated this as a full-time job, and I'm dedicated to this township. I will be your full-time treasurer. My business degree, management experience qualifies me to run an effective department. My real estate background gives me an understanding of Orion's properties, the tax base, and the assessments. My private business ownership and investments while running a family household gives me the expertise and ability to report the township finances cohesively and on time. As your trustee, I have served on the Paint Creek Trail, the Polly Ann Commission, the Safety Path Commission, the Brown Road Corridor Improvement, which shows my loyalty. Remember, August 2nd, Donnie Steele for treasurer, full-time person, full-time job.